Hello, still becoming. Welcome back to the show, episode 25, I believe. That's right. I'm titled The Ego. And so as we get into it, a little bit of just kind of describing that more. I know a lot of you already know about that, and those of you that really don't identify it, hopefully this will kind of help identify that, issue that you're thinking like one more rep this and why can't I be that? And well, it's probably your ego is a little, too in control of the situation. So before we dive into it, I just want to say thank you for listening into the last episode I did with Rachel, and hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully it gave you some information and perspective on, no wrong answer there, just a little different approach to more just getting after it and being successful with it. If you're enjoying it, follow along on Instagram at stillbecoming26. There you'll find reels and, my data from my workouts and kind of continuing on with the story leading up to my next marathon, the Rogue Marathon down in Ashland, Medford area of Oregon, October 10th. And so got some ways to go, but it's kind of to help bridge that gap. And like, is he always on? Is he always training and being intense with it? Nope. I literally just finished a 17-mile run about a little over about an hour ago, and I feel like I really didn't do anything. Part of that, we'll get into the episode of, the ego and, why I think it's important to bring it up and how do you manage it? I'd say I was not the best at managing it for many years, and over the last couple years, I've been good at managing it and, good at telling it to shh. It's not your time yet, nor do I think it'll be your time ever again. And let's dive in. The ego, what's it about? Most people look at the ego as, again, like I said, one more rep. That's going to define me, if I just push harder, or I'm really not pushing that hard and, I feel great. However, internally, the body probably is telling you, yo, our stress from life, the life load, talking about work, family, talking about maybe you walk the dogs intensely or you walk the dogs a lot more than 30 minutes. That all stacks up. And then on top of that, you get your run in and then you're like, let me go hit the weights. And, you're not aware of internally, your body and your stress might be elevated more. You did it on 6 hours of sleep and now you're telling yourself, hey, it's feeling really easy. Nah, let's take it up a notch. And that would be the ego talking, telling you, oh, well, this feels easy. Let's keep pushing. And I say to that, that's the voice you need to tell. Shh, it's going to get you in a lot more trouble than it is going to be successful for you. And it's one thing over the last couple of years, I've been trying to get myself to just not listen to anymore. Just turned 40 and, at about 38, I told myself, all right, if we're really going to give this a shot and we're really going to slowly morph into a much better overall, well-rounded athlete or just enjoyment of the hobby and passion, I need to really check that ego. It's not easy to do. I'll definitely say that first. That ego really can make you second guess. It can make you feel less if you don't push it, because your ego has simply said, nah, that if you're going to go really slow, that's not working for you. That's not a workout. If you're really slow, that is pathetic. And I say to that, no, I have been trying it. I have been, at least remotely successful with at least not hurting myself, especially over the last, year or so. I've had a couple niggles, but I will say over the last year, I've had, very good success at keeping my body, well-rounded, listening to things, telling myself to back off when it's necessary, literally just finishing 17 miles this morning. And I feel great. I didn't chase the pace. I had a little bit quicker workout yesterday. Been a couple weeks because I had a week off last week. And then I had, this week rolling into it. And, my, as I so-call Fast Friday. My Fast Friday was a little just quick turnover, leg turnover. It's not really the paces I want to hit. in the 5 minutes, but I'm listening to plan. I am telling my ego, you are not in control. You have been getting us in trouble, and we have been hurt in the past because of that. And so I'm simply just saying, no, you are not in control. You stay at home because I don't want you to get involved with my enjoyment of my passion. And so I've told myself, let's just focus on the task at hand. I don't care if it feels slow. I want to do better and I want to be better. And by that, I have to listen to the voice of reason. And it sucks sometimes. I'll tell you, especially today, it was boring at times. And I mean, that's 17 miles. How's that boring? But it was, a lot of me wanted to really push it. A lot of me wanted to really just grind it out like I used to in the past. But it simply I just want to prove to myself that, and to whoever's tuning in and listening to this, that you can be very successful by just showing up and apparently working out into, runs and workouts that don't feel that tough or don't feel like you really got a workout in. However, stacked together over a long period of time, it's very successful. I have been doing, work with my coach and listening to kind of what he's been, coaching me with and, researching into those of you that followed the 2-hour marathon barrier and you're hearing, what are they doing? What are they training? And the one thing I'm really getting annoyed with is this idea of, yes, Sebastian Sawe, the guy who won it and ran under 2 hours, is, this mythical, like he ran 150 miles a week. And we get focused in on that. And that ego says we need to chase that. However, if you're looking at the data, he didn't stay there forever. He didn't run it week after week after week. That's the part people are forgetting. Just because someone can lift 250 pounds, 350 pounds in a bench press, they're not doing that every day. And if they are, they're going to get hurt. And that's part of the ego. I can't tell you how many times I've kept pushing, and had some success, but ended up always getting hurt. And right now, I haven't been really tested in marathon training, but to get through the base phase, the stuff that builds a foundation so you can get after it a little bit more, is going so successful. And it is boring. That's the part about it. The most successful approaches to what you're doing are very boring and unstimulating in most parts. But stacked together over a long period of time, you start seeing the results. You start seeing the success you're having, and it's no BS. It really does work. And in most cases, why you fail and why you quit is because that ego takes control and says, you've had a couple of days of success. Let's keep going harder. And you wind up just getting so far deep into training load, intensity load, life load on top of that, that you crumble and you realize this isn't working. Maybe I'm not that individual. Maybe I'm old and that success is not there anymore. And I say to that, no. That was your ego that got you in trouble. And you need to start listening internally, the voice of reason that's telling you, you know what, today may not be a good day to push and we should just relax. Or today may not be that day that we chase a PR in the gym. I know I want to, and it's just not good. I didn't sleep well. The last couple of nights, work's been kind of hectic, and instead of losing ground, what if we just kept it at maybe 60 to 70% and did it until, there's a break in my work, and then I can try to chase a PR, or maybe this whole week, has been kind of crazy. You know what? I'm going to just see how I feel today, give it about 60, 70%. Cool. And then tomorrow being a day off from work and, a day off from life, maybe I'll try and go at least to 80% and get at least an even better benefit, but I didn't tax myself into 100 and just be dead at the end of the workout. So, I'm just letting you know that ego will get you into so much trouble and it will eventually be the end of your enjoyment. And I just want to say, I hope you all are out there and you're listening and tuning into the idea of putting your ego in a box and saying, you know what, we're done with you. I don't care anymore. I don't need to look the best. I don't need to, show myself off every second of the day. Instead, I just need to focus in on stacking good days on top of one another. And it should feel like I did not even work out. It's kind of wild. Like I say, yesterday, that workout was not taxing. For me, it was just getting into, just some turnover. I've got one more week that's kind of something similar to that. But again, we're not chasing the fastest version of me. We're chasing the version of me that exists currently right now. And as we stack more weeks, that bar could change. But in the meantime, I am going to let the ego sit down and shut up. So I hope that resonates with you. Tell your ego to sit down and shut up. But anyways, I just wanted to let you guys know that you are still becoming and you are the only one stopping you. I will see you all next time. And I hope that this week, and that's your challenge, that you can tell your ego to take a hike and I'm in control. Okay? See y'all next time. Bye.